It's been quite a while since I've actually had such a laptop come my way, and it's basically designed for one purpose and one purpose only: gaming. But I'm still gonna take a look at it from a creative standpoint. This here is the GL65 Leopard from MSI. So let's get started with what's new. Quote unquote, the all-new Intel 10th-Gen H series processors that's still on the 14nm fabrication process and is part of the Comet Lake family. The Leopard I have right here is rocking the Intel Core i7-10750H, and when you compare that to the previous Core i7-9750H, there's basically just two differences. The first being a higher max turbo frequency of 5GHz compared to 4.5GHz, and the second being support for faster RAM out of the box. That's pretty much it. It's basically to me like a better bin 9750H, and you might even be able to tell that from the benchmarks later on. It's a refresh. But anyways, since we are talking about the specs, let's get on with the rest of it. As mentioned, it's running an Intel Core i7-10750H, an Nvidia GeForce RTX 2060, 16GB of RAM, and a 1TB NVMe SSD. Now, if you're familiar with MSI, you will know that the Leopard series is more targeted towards the entry-level or the budget gaming sector, and with that decision, it kind of influenced the design. It's definitely not a thin and light, coming in at about 2.3 kilograms, and it's primarily made up of hard plastics. As you can tell, the laptop is chunky, and the whole design aesthetic is very gamerish. The lid and keyboard deck does make use of aluminum, so it helps to make it look slightly more professional in a way. Though, I'll leave it up to you if you like that huge MSI dragon on the lid. In essence, it does look and feel like an MSI gaming laptop. And if you haven't yet noticed, it's basically the same design since the 8th-Gen model, if I remember correctly. For the display, you get two options. You can choose between a 120Hz 1080p IPS display or 144Hz 1080p IPS display, which I have right here. I would say it's not the best 144Hz display out there, but it's definitely above average. You get, of course, that buttery smooth 144Hz refresh rate, which is great for not just gaming but general use as well. It covers nearly 100% sRGB and about 65% Adobe RGB, while pushing a max brightness of about 320 nits. It's basically great for content consumption and definitely for gaming. As for creative work, as long as you're not doing any kind of major color correcting or grading, it will do you fine. The bezels are quite thin all around except for the chin, which is quite large and just a little thicker at the top for the webcam. We now come to my first gripe about this laptop, and to be fair, it's kind of a weird gripe, but why does the webcam have to cut into the perimeter of the lid? It looks ugly, and honestly, there seems to be enough space to just move it down a little, so why not? Anyways, it's an average webcam and I guess it's just enough for video calls and stuff, but the microphone is a little lacking. Moving down, we have a full-size keyboard, complete with a numpad, and like most MSI laptops, it's made by SteelSeries. You can choose either a single color red backlit keyboard or this, a full per-key RGB keyboard. Overall, it's a good enough keyboard with a good amount of key travel and tactile feedback. In fact, I felt right at home gaming on this machine with this keyboard. For typing on the other hand, it wasn't as great, but personally for me, I do prefer a 15-inch laptop without a numpad. However, I do have to mention there are a couple of things that I do not like on this keyboard. The first being the position of the function and the Windows key. Now I get it, I understand why it's like this. It's to prevent the accidental press of the Windows key, especially when you're gaming or using the WASD keys. But when I do want to use the Windows key, I found myself pressing on the alternate key or the function key rather frequently just because of habit. The other thing, the function keys are kind of all over the place, or maybe you can sort of group them into 3 separate zones. Yet, the ones that I'll use the most, being volume and brightness, are located on the arrow keys. So now, instead of being able to change those settings with one hand, I now have to use both. To me, it's just a really weird layout. It's not a bad keyboard per se, just the layout is weird. Moving down, we have the trackpad, and it's fairly large. It runs precision and it feels great, and it works, gestures and everything. It's also one of the few trackpads where the left and right click have dedicated buttons. They do feel tactile and have a satisfying click. I also do find that dragging and dropping files is much easier with such a design. All in all, no qualms about it. You get two 2-watt speakers that are located on the bottom of the unit, and they sound average at best. I would say get a pair of headphones. Moving to I/O, you have quite a healthy amount. On the left, you have your RJ45 Ethernet port, HDMI 1.4, mini display port, a standard USB 3.2 and a Type-C port along with dedicated headphone and mic jacks. On the right, you have your power jack right in the middle, an SD card reader, and two more standard USB 3.2 ports right at the edge. While I do appreciate the amount of ports, I do have to question MSI putting the USB ports right at the edge of the laptop. And why the inclusion of HDMI 1.4 and not 2.0? I think it's a slight oversight by MSI, in my opinion. With all that out of the way, let's talk about performance. There are several profiles to choose from using the MSI Dragon Center, but most of our results were done on a custom user setting with the performance set to high and the fans to auto. First up as usual is Cinebench R20. Here, the Core i7-10750H scored a multi-core of 2773 and a single core of 443, which is a slight improvement from the Core i7-9750H that I previously tested with the Razer Blade 15. Granted, it's not that fair of a test considering the two very different thermal solutions, but in general you get about 10% more performance with the 10th-Gen chip. But I also did run the test on the turbo profile with the fans on cooler boost mode. Surprisingly, there wasn't much difference with the results, being within margin of error. In both tests, the CPU hovered around the 95 degrees Celsius mark, which is not that great given that the fan is actually spinning really fast and getting quite loud, but it does do so without dropping the boost. Moving on, we have DaVinci Resolve. The 1080p edit took 8 minutes and 57 seconds to render, while the 4K edit took about 23 minutes and 45 seconds. Compare that to the 9750H on the Razer Blade, the render times are also within margin of error, pretty much the same. Now, as you might know, DaVinci does favor a powerful GPU, and with the MSI Dragon Center, you can actually activate extreme performance mode and you can overclock the GPU for both the core and the memory. Naturally, I maxed it out and rendered once more. This time, the 1080p render took 8 minutes and 38 seconds, while the 4K edit took 22 minutes and 47 seconds. So it's roughly an average of 45 seconds faster to render with the overclock. The main difference, however, was the temperatures. With the high performance mode and fans set to auto, the CPU temperatures hovered in the mid-80s, whereas in turbo mode, with the overclock on the GPU and cooler boost active, the CPU hovers in the mid-90s instead. In short, for creative work, I suggest just leaving the performance set to high and the fans on auto, as you don't really get that much of a benefit, and yet it was at the cost of immense noise. Like, it's really loud with the cooler boost on. Yep. The NVMe drive on this machine is pretty fast with extremely good sequential read and write speeds, although 4K render is a little lacking. We now touch on gaming, and to be frank, it's a really capable gaming machine. Not only do you get great frame rates playing esports or AAA titles, it's enjoyable as well thanks to that 144Hz display. Temperatures are not that great, but the performance is there. The CPU was pushing nearly 4 GHz on all cores with the temperatures around 93 degrees Celsius, while the GPU was boosting up to 1830 MHz with the temperatures around 82 degrees Celsius. Now you can still further tweak the profiles using the MSI Dragon Center to find the right balance between performance and thermals, and you can actually do your own custom fan curve, which is quite neat. One thing to note is that because of the thickness of the chassis itself, it's actually pretty comfortable to game on for long periods at a time because the keyboard deck doesn't really get that warm despite the high CPU temperatures. As for battery life, it's pretty average for a gaming laptop, coming in at about 4 hours of actual usage in my use case. In terms of upgradability, you get access to 2 RAM slots, so you can upgrade to 64GB of RAM should you so desire, a single slot for an NVMe drive, but also a 2.5-inch drive on the other side for another SSD or hard disk if you want to. Overall, this has been a pretty enjoyable laptop to use. And yes, especially at the start, I do take a look at laptops from a more creative standpoint. And in that regard, this actually performed rather well. But to be fair, gaming is where it excels, and it performs great for gaming. It has been an enjoyable gaming experience. Granted, the temperatures aren't all that great, so I do suggest playing with the profiles a little, change the performance, set your own custom fan curve, and I believe you'll be able to strike a nice balance. If you're looking for something like a desktop replacement, I guess this also fits the bill. But there's something that I have to mention, and it's that this laptop, the GL65 Leopard from MSI, is kind of in a weird position right now. Now to clarify, the laptop that I have right here is just one of many SKUs which MSI offers. The GL and the GP lineup from MSI with the Leopard designation is mainly aimed towards entry-level gaming or budget gaming, as I mentioned. But in the last couple of years, there's essentially no difference between the GL and the GP series. You now get pretty much the exact same chassis, and even the configurations are exactly the same. You can get the Leopard anywhere from 10th Gen Intel Core i5 with a GTX 1650 all the way up to a 10th Gen Intel Core i7 with an RTX 2070 for both the GL and the GP variant. The variant which I have right here costs 2,849 Singapore dollars on Lazada at the time of this review. At that price, I can no longer consider it budget gaming or entry-level gaming. For that same price, you can look at other offerings from MSI themselves, like the MSI GF63 or even the GL65 Stealth. If you want to save even more, opt for the 9th Gen variant, as there's pretty much no difference in performance between the 9th Gen and the 10th Gen. But if you are still interested in the GL65 Leopard from MSI, I would say take a look at the 1660 Ti variants with the 9th Gen Intel chips. There's essentially no difference between 9th Gen and 10th Gen. Arguably the same performance, but yet at a much more reasonable price. That's it. If you have any questions, drop us a comment down below, subscribe to us if you haven't, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Till the next one. See ya!